Hello.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm tired again. I don't know why I'm always tired when I'm about to do this. Maybe it's kind of sort of like, I don't know, resistance, when you're stepping into yourself and you have parts of consciousness going, no, don't do that.
Like the little devil on one side and
Yeah,
the angel on the shoulder.
that's exactly it. Yeah. Oh, I've been with Joyce today. We've been sorting out her patio.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've been helping
How,
her with some jobs.
how is she?
Yeah, she's fine. Yeah.
Excellent. That's good. I'm glad she's getting things sorted and getting things straight. It's been ongoing for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was fun. It was nice to get out of the house and do something handy.
Carly's come back in.
Hi, Carly.
So, come on then, you can unmute or not. She's waving and then, there we go.
There we go. I was having a pesky moment, getting in and getting out, so I'm going to put it on charge. And is everyone well?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Good.
The ice cream van is right outside my house. Can you hear that?
We heard that.
So loud. Oh, it does my head in, I can tell you.
Feel free to go and indulge if you want to go and get yourself an ice cream.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine, thanks. They played that same tune over and over again, and I need to try and integrate it because it's a bit grating.
Or block it out.
Yeah,
Pretend it's not there.
yeah.
And is it a regular stop then outside your house?
Yeah, it just goes up and down, and it's always the same time. It's literally every day. Obviously it's great for the kids.
Yeah, well, and it's school holidays. So
Yeah, exactly.
they'll be.
It's that's good. It's moving away now.
Any buyers then?
Doesn't sound like it, yeah. Mhm.
So what have you been up to since last
Um,
week? Good.
yeah, I've been quite busy really. Busy with clients. Yeah, my daughter's away on holiday with her dad, so I'm sort of having a bit of downtime as well. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's all good. So we're doing a week on parenting, a week off, and she's kind of swapping over, so she's having lots of different experiences. That's good. And it's nice to have a week of intense work and then a week of intense rest. I quite like that polarity.
And what are you going to be talking about tonight? Self-worth.
Yeah, yeah. So we're doing self-worth, and I'm throwing in kind of self-esteem, self-love, because they're all sort of the same, coming from the same place. Um, and it kind of seems to me, that it's the thing that when I'm working with clients that people want to address the most. And it's the thing that I think people don't understand the most because I think that the majority of healing is done by understanding why the thing is there more than actually what to do about it. So, what I'm going to do, sort of what I'm going to go through today is what I've, through research and through my own sort of unraveling of self, um, what I figured out and what I found has happened to all of us. So it's like that saying, you can only clean the house if you can see the dirt. So so it's quite sort of yeah, yeah, yeah.
going with the orderly fashion. Thank you, Jen, for that one.
Yeah, it makes sense that everyone is struggling with abundance and finding it hard to love themselves, because the odds were pitted against us, I can tell you. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, like they all are, and it sort of fits in as well with the the fact that probably most people listening to this will be on the codependent side of things. So hopefully it will help people understand their journey and set off a few truth bombs, which are always good.
Just mentioning codependence or codependence,
Yeah.
codependency.
Yeah.
Is a human and a pet a codependent situation? That, each of you relies on the other for something.
Maybe. I think we can get messages through animals. Yeah, I don't know. I think if you don't have family around you, and so you haven't got a partner to sort of reflect things to you, I think your pet probably does. Because, like, for example, a friend of mine, she's got a really, really needy dog. So because it's a rescue dog, like a really anxious dog. But that needy, anxious dog is reflecting to her something that she's suppressed. So she's suppressed neediness and anxiety, which would have been present in her frequency before her and her dog got together. So her dog is showing her that. So yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. I get messages from my cat sometimes, but yeah.
Well, we can leave that for a whole show all of its own, maybe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I do healing for people's animals as well sometimes, because I can do the emotion and body code with animals. Which is brilliant, because when an animal heals of something after they've had a session with me, it isn't a placebo effect. You know that something energetic happened. So people are often kind of like, oh, skeptical people who wouldn't. You can kind of use your pet as the canary down the coal mine, if you see what I mean. But yeah,
if it works on me, dog, it'll work on me.
Yeah. I've had a lot of skeptical people, and I've said, well, if it doesn't work, you don't have to pay me. Which most people don't. They don't feel. I don't know. It bamboozles people, and yeah, it kind of scares people off, because they're like, oh, this woman's really sure of herself, and then it scares them because they're like, what could that mean? But yeah, animals great. They're great reflectors, because they're basically pure sort of unconditional love. And they are going to be showing you what you've suppressed. And Andy's thinking about his cat and his dog now. What are they showing me? Yeah. Oh.
Stands in the same spot, doing the same thing for like 5 minutes, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah.
He loves it. He loves going out. I love taking him out. It's a good combination. It's a good codependent combination.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So over to you, Jen. It's your show. Have a great show. I'm going to mute myself, and see you on the other side.
All right then. Thanks, Andy. Start recording. Hello. This is Jenny Luscombe, and this is episode 6, would you believe, of Feeling is Healing. And today we're going to be exploring self-esteem, self-worth, and self-love, which are all kind of the same thing. I would say obviously self-love, it's obvious kind of what that is, and we've sort of covered that a little bit already in the other shows. Self-worth is about how much we're valuing ourselves. Self-esteem is kind of more about our isness, like who is it that we are? So who are we, and how highly do we rate ourselves? So I'm sort of pitching this topic to this audience based on the assumption that most of us are sort of coming from the codependent side of things. So that, yeah, I might give a trigger warning, because like this is quite gritty, this episode. And I've kind of got all this information from doing a lot of research for clients and from unraveling the fabric of my own existence as well. But you know, based on my trauma and things that have happened to me. And I've realized that with a lot of my clients, self-esteem is the main thing that people want to focus on. And there's loads of different ways that this can manifest in people's lives. And obviously a lot of people are concerned about prosperity and financial abundance as well, which is all connected up to our own sense of value. So how do we value ourselves, and why is it so hard? So most of what I'm going to say today is actually about why is it so hard, because Louise Hay, I think it was, said, you know, if you want to clean the house, you have to see the dirt. So we can't heal something unless we fully understand it. And so many people that are struggling with their self-esteem and their sense of self-value try and they try and they try and they don't get it, and they think they value themselves and they just don't get it reflected in their life, or they get treated like shit by people in relationships, and they're like, well, if people are disrespecting me, I'm not respecting myself. So why do I keep getting into these relationships where I'm not valued? Because the only way we can attract somebody that is valuing us is if we value ourselves. So most of us on the spiritual path sort of start to understand that. So I'm going to sort of take everybody on a bit of a journey to understand what it was that happened to us, but all of us. So quite often we're kind of like looking at ourselves and we're thinking, oh my God, like I'm so broken. I'm the most defective person I know. And everybody seems to be under the illusion that everybody else has got it right, and they're the only one that is as broken as they are, and that there's something fundamentally wrong about us. And everyone didn't get the memo. So this is basically about what happened to all of us, I think. Even if we think that our childhood was good, and I find that often when clients come to me and they've got a problem and they don't know what it's about, and so they come to me because they know I help people surface subconscious information, they're kind of really perplexed, and they're like, you know, my childhood was amazing and I don't remember anything bad happening. We've normalized horror, and we have got no idea how bad it was for us. And it was common for us to experience trauma, and everyone has experienced trauma, and all families are dysfunctional. And I actually think that obviously some families are more dysfunctional than others, but this is the emotional dark age, what we're living through now. And you know, for example, like you hear people say, oh, everyone hit their the seriousness of that. But really, just because it was commonplace and it was cultural norm, and you know, Johnny next door, we've all got a central nervous system, and just because it was common doesn't mean that our central nervous systems aren't triggered and still holding on to that. we haven't healed it. We can't heal something that we don't regard as dysfunctional. So I'm going to sort of talk you through why it is that we all seem to struggle with our self-esteem and our self-worth. So it actually makes sense that we don't value ourselves enough, because we were all taught from day one to tune out of ourselves and into other people. So a lot of people on the spiritual path would regard themselves as empathic. And what a lot of people don't know or realize is that empathy is actually a trauma response. I mean, obviously there are people who are more empathic than others, and they'll be like, you know, some people are gifted that way. But to be honest, the majority of people that are empathic are that way because they had parents that were unpredictable in some way. And obviously there's, you know, extremes of that, and then there's not so much. But if you're empathic, have a think about why you would have needed to be hyper attuned to your parents. So empathy is a trauma response, and most of us on the spiritual path are sort of hyper attuned to our environment because we are hardwired to keep ourselves safe. It's not our natural state of being. I mean, obviously there has to be a bit of that, the primal, you know, I need to run away from tigers and I have to know what's going on around me. But the level of triggers that we deal with on a day-to-day that are coming from things that have happened to us, it is off the charts. So most of us are hyper attuned to our parents to stay safe because of their unpredictability. So while we're kind of like being hypersensitive to our surroundings and we're on high alert, kind of in survival mode, we're not aware of ourselves. So we can't become aware of our own self-value if we're not with ourselves. So, you know, codependence, as we sort of learned over the last few weeks, we were taught to self-sacrifice for other people. So our parents kind of make us into self-sacrificing codependence because we have to do as we're told. We were actually taught to people please, and we were taught to give ourselves up for our parents. Now, that in itself is a horror show that we have normalized. So we've totally shut ourselves down. So when we've shut ourselves down, we've shut down the fullness and the wholeness of who we actually are. So if we're doing this, and we're still doing it chronically, we're learning our whole lives to make ourselves less than others. So our set point from day one is that we are less than. So you can already see that we're not valuing ourselves chronically, like every second of the day. So we make ourselves not as important as other people and therefore less valuable. So we're wearing that program like a cloak that we can't take off, basically. So we are giving because we're the codependents. We're giving to others what they want from us to our own detriment. So we're kind of hijacked and we're engulfed. So if we're in a relationship with people that are more on the narcissistic side of things, then they're reinforcing this, our lack of value, our kind of less than, by needing to keep us perceiving that we are less than them. So they need to do this for their own survival. So for them to survive, they need us to perceive ourselves as less than, which is why they need to gaslight and manipulate our perception. So they need to manipulate our perception of our own value for their survival. So it's a shit show, and the world is narcissistic. So we're coming from the side of empathy. We're hyper attuned to other people, so that makes us have an affinity with other people, to identify with other people, to feel compassion and love for other people. The narcissistic person is going to be kind of feigning sympathy, which just keeps reinforcing the less than. So the odds are pitched against us. So we shut ourselves down for others, making them more important. And that's just what we all do. And we have to realize that we're doing this. And once we realize that we're doing this, we can start to heal it. If we don't realize we're doing this, we can't heal it. We're still kind of sleepwalking in a way. We're still kind of brainwashed by that program. So we've tuned out of ourselves chronically. So we're chronically distracted away from truly knowing and understanding who we are and what our excellences are to keep ourselves, basically to keep ourselves alive. So we've never got out of survival mode for long enough to truly know ourselves. So if we don't know ourselves, we can't value ourselves. So bearing in mind that the world is what it is, and you know, we're perceiving kind of like a boatload of predators out there keeping us sick and dependent and low. You know, we're all kind of basically castrated and disempowered. No wonder we don't value ourselves. So anybody out there that's been working on their self-worth, their self-esteem, their self-value, their self-love, don't beat yourself up for not having it all figured out, because we all do this on the spiritual path. We make ourselves the bad guys for not being further along, still having problems that we perceive are kind of like not evolved or not spiritual. We are all trying to, you know, we're all trying to help ourselves and each other in extreme circumstances. So stop beating yourselves up for not having it all figured out, for not valuing yourself fully. So let yourselves see why you don't value yourself as much as you could, because it's the most healing thing you can do. So a lot of people overcomplicate healing, but what healing really is in its most basic form is awareness. If you can become aware of all of this and then apply it to your own life and see what happened to you, you're halfway there. So we have to see it to heal it, and then we have to feel it to heal it. So basically, you know, how trauma happened, as a human, we were all on some level denied and rejected and disowned, suppressed, oppressed, controlled, humiliated. We suppress the true aspects of ourself. So that's positive aspects and negative aspects of self. So all of this as well is kind of deeply buried because it's been normalized as well. So some of it we don't even see as the horror and terror that it actually is. So when we're small and we're little, we naturally have a sense of our own value. Like we're actually born on this planet whole in the fullness and wholeness of who we are. We're not fragmented yet because nothing bad has happened to us. So it just is. Our sense of our own value just is. So babies, they don't really have a low self-esteem. Toddlers, probably not, but they might be starting to feel the programs. They might be starting to shut themselves down at that age. So it's organic, our sense of value. So originally we are whole, we're connected to our specialness. We feel who we are inside. Our natural set point is to explore our I amness, our specialness. But because we were born on planet Earth, where the level of fucked upness is off the scale, we are systematically taken away from ourselves and our own power and our sense of our own value. So when a baby is born into this world, when we popped out, our parents looked at us and said, who can we make this child into? What kind of person do we want him or her to be? So they kind of live through us. They see us as an extension of them. They want us to be maybe what they couldn't be, or they want us to be something that the neighbours would find impressive to keep up with the Joneses. So basically, from day one, we've got agendas imposed onto us by the people who love us or are supposed to love us. So what would have helped us would have been, we would have popped out, here we are, planet Earth, if they saw us as an individual in our own right with a potential and a uniqueness and a free will and autonomy, agency separate from them. So it didn't occur to them that our divine optimum fruition and potential would come about if they allowed us to choose our own destiny and life path, if they allowed us to initiate our own learning, for example, and make our own mistakes, that we can actually be trusted. So that's how we would have moved into our potential really fast, and that's how we would have been able to expand the universe and live in a utopian Earth instead of the one that we got. So that little version of us soon starts to feel the effects of the tsunami of agendas from parents, from school, from friends, from society, from everywhere. And we decide that the specialness of ourselves that we could feel inside, we realize that that specialness, well, we decide that that specialness that we thought we decide that it must have been a mistake and that we must be wrong about ourselves. So we decide that we're not special after all, and we start to shut ourselves down. And we do that because as a child, we cannot see the incapacity of our parents. So we don't see the incapacity of our parents until we're in our 30s, 40s, 60s, which is what we're all doing now. We're all realizing what happened. So if we'd seen the incapacity of our parents, we could have brushed it off and thought, oh, I'm just going to be me. You know what I mean? But when we're kids, our parents are like gods to us. So we developmentally cannot see them as wrong or bad, even when they are the bad guys. So if we as kids saw our parents as abusive or wrong or untrustworthy in any way, it would have made us very, very unsafe and insecure, and the world would not have made sense at all. So, I mean, I've had clients of mine that have kind of demonstrated this, like, really clearly. Like, people have grown up in like really extreme circumstances. For example, they're living in a family of drug addicts or whatever. And even though there's always love to a certain degree, or people think it's love, like there's some kind of affection usually. And the kids, like, they will still love their parents unconditionally, regardless of what goes on, regardless of how much they're hit or abused, they will still unconditionally love their parents. So as children, we cannot make them better because it's work. We have to survive. We depend on them. We're a relationship. So we have to make ourselves wrong. So when something is or something in the family happens, kids always tell themselves a story about how it's happened. So we internalize the bad things that happen, and we start to believe that there must be something that we did or something that we are that caused that thing. So when we were shut down spectacularly over and over again, repeatedly, we decided that we must deserve it. So we decide that we must deserve to be shut down, that there is something terrible about who we are inside. So we decide things like we vow never to speak up again because of that thing that happened. So these decisions, like when I do EFT tapping with people, I always bring people back to decision points. When did you decide you are never going to speak up again? Because that's what limiting beliefs are. When we have a thing happen and then we decide something so that we avoid that thing, we try and protect ourselves from that thing ever happening again. That's great. It's a coping mechanism. It probably does help us to some degree, but if we keep hold of that for our entire life, it seriously limits our progress. So we vow never to do this and never to do that. And we have various other trauma responses that we kind of download into our nervous systems, as well as the, you know, the divine aspects of self that we kind of demonize and suppress, like into the depths of our subconscious. So what's in the way of our self-worth, our self-esteem, our self-love? So it's not just that we learnt simply that we don't value ourselves because of all of this, because of everything that happened and because of all the agendas in the world as well. What I've realized is it's that we actually can't. So we can't because we don't know how, because of so many things that have happened to us, and there's so much to unravel, and nobody sort of taught us that it was a requirement for thrival. You know, we didn't know because we've been so busy in survival mode. So we don't know how to value ourselves because we're all kind of developmentally delayed. So this is what fragmentation has done. So we have no choice but to start that process now in adulthood. So we literally have to reparent ourselves. We have to learn how to value ourselves. So there's also kind of like, I mean, in my programming as well, not everyone's, but like a lot of people have also had like even more twists of the knife and nails in the coffin, like a step further. Like, it's not just that we don't value ourselves enough to thrive, it's that we were taught that we shouldn't value ourselves. I mean, anyone that was raised as a Catholic will know this, that that self-hatred is what you should be like, which is shocking to unravel. So to be taught that you shouldn't value yourself and that you should self-sacrifice and you should be self-deprecating, and you should make yourself go last for everything. You should like people please for the rest of your life and just put up with the way that you're walked all over. You know, a lot of us are taught that it's wrong to value yourself. So you've got like an extra layer on top of that. But I don't know how many of you had on a loop this phrase, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. So I had this on a loop, like whenever I tried to be myself or do anything powerful. But if you really look at that, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. So I find this incredibly triggering for a number of reasons. So having become you know, I had to become an expert in emotion to survive. So I know that shame is the lowest frequency in the universe. If anybody like follows Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, any of that, like they've kind of like put the emotions in frequency order. So at the top, you've got things like gratitude and love and joy. At the bottom, you've got shame. So the reason that shame is the lowest of the low frequency is because it is the pushing away of the self. So it's not, I mean, guilt is quite a low frequency, but it's not the same as guilt, because guilt is basically, I've done something wrong. Shame is someone wrong. I am fundamentally wrong and bad. So it's like you've been dehumanized if you've been shamed. And I was shamed constantly as a child. So when our parents are telling us and they're shaming us that we ought to be ashamed of ourselves, we receive the message that we basically should abandon ourselves and that we should vibrate at the lowest frequency known to man. And our parents thought they were teaching us to be good. This is the emotional dark age. It really is. Like, we've got no idea what happened. And there's so much to unravel. So, in order to heal this, we have to become conscious of what has been done to us. We have to start to like go back in our childhood and listen to the things that were said to us. Listen to the way things were. Listen to the things. Normally, you will normally think really look at things, because it's a thing that I've noticed in therapy when people memory comes. I help people get to core issues by focusing on sensation in the body. So the sensation in the body, that's the archive. The sensation is kind of the key to unlock the emotional root of the issue that the client's going through. So when that memory triggers, sometimes people go, oh, it's not going to be that. Which makes me go, huh? Yes, it is going to be that. What's that? That thing that you were kind of like trying to swipe, like as if it was the iPad. No, that thing that you're trying not to look at, that one. It's always the one. So we need to like really go back and look at particularly the things that were said to us and the things that were said to us repeatedly, because we will be wearing that like a pair of sunglasses that we're seeing life through. So we will be experiencing that thing. So we have to let ourselves feel all of this. And, very recently I've cried my heart out about all of this, like on many occasions, and there's layers and layers of it. So, trying to come to terms with the cruelty that happened to a lot ourselves and a lot of us, and seeing collectively what we've been through is really hard. So basically, to start to value ourselves, we have to learn. So we have to start from the beginning. If we want other people to value us for who we are, we have to figure out who we are, because it doesn't just happen. This stuff doesn't just happen. We have to figure out who we are, because we can't attract people who are going to see who we are and feel who we are and know who we are until we see and feel and know who we are. So if you don't know who you are, you need to start healing. So whatever the healing modality is, it will start to not change you into a different person, but it will start to help you take all the covers off of you that were put there by other people and by society and by agendas and all of that. So to value ourselves, to have other people value us for who we are, we have to figure out who we are through healing. So that's step one. If we don't become aware of who we are through healing from all of this, we can't reclaim ourselves. We can't move into freedom fully. So we all want to be our true selves unapologetically, because we just have never had the opportunity to do that, really. So we can't ever feel valued for who we are unless we do that. So if we want to learn how to value ourselves, we need to ask ourselves questions like, what do people who love themselves do? What do people who value themselves do? How do those people feel? How do they act? What do they say? How do they live? Now, this is a tricky one, because out there, like particularly in the world of social media, there's a huge game of pretend going on, and very, very successful people are often having a game of pretend with themselves, and they're kind of not really who they are. They're a big act. They're a version of themselves that actually isn't the true one. So we might go, oh, that person seems to value themselves or whatever, but it's often not the case. So this is a really tricky one. So I would recommend studying it, and you have to figure it out for yourself. So when I sort of ask myself the question, you know, what do people who value themselves do? I look at my own life and I think, okay, well, sometimes I smoke and I know it's bad for me, but I still do it. I do it if I'm anxious. Sometimes I'll do it to socialize. If I valued myself, would I choose to have that behavior? Would I choose to explain my body? So, I mean, what I know about it, it's a coping mechanism to try and help you with a situation you feel like you can't change. And it's often to do with the lack of community that works for you. So, yeah, so when I do something like that, when I smoke, I know that I'm not valuing myself. So, to me, someone who values themselves isn't doing self-destructive behaviors like that. But I mean, obviously, it's good sometimes to eat the cakes and drink the wine and, you know, do the whatever. Because we're human and sometimes things are fun that are bad for us, and balance is great. So we have to ask ourselves these questions and base it on our own lives. So, what am I doing in my own life that shows me that I value myself already? So, like, for example, I've started to exercise regularly, which I wasn't really doing before. And it impacts everything. It impacts your productivity, it impacts your body, your health, your weight, the way you feel about yourself. It lifts your spirits. I think it changes your frequency. So if you exercise regularly, that's showing you that you value yourself to some degree. If you're doing anything to excess, that's probably there's going to be something underneath that. Like, for example, you know, if you're watching Netflix 24/7, you're probably in avoidance or denial. So that's okay because, like, that's part of the journey. And sometimes you do have to self-sabotage to see that you're doing it in order to look under the floorboards of that and to kind of figure out, you know, I'm on a path here to something better. So we have to figure out for ourselves, what is that? Who is it that I know who values themselves? Or what are the behaviors of a person who values themselves? And what sort of things would those people say? And how do they live? And how do I know that that's true value? You know, I think excuse me, start to talk to people about it as well. So we have to reparent ourselves. We have to learn this from scratch. And I think we're all in the same boat here. Because I think, like, anyone who is kind of building an empire on a full self, so people that are still kind of like living as a part of them that isn't really their true self, I think it's inevitable that it will collapse at some point. And I've had like loads of collapses, and probably most of us on the spiritual path have, where everything's fallen flat and you thought you were on, like, going down the right rabbit hole or whatever, and then something terrible happens or something humiliating, or you feel exposed, or you know, and you realize, oh my God, that wasn't me, and I was like out of integrity or whatever. And it's just how it works. It's sometimes excruciating, but yeah, it's all about authenticity. So we have to ask ourselves questions like, so if I had been parented in the way that I would have wanted, like, what would have been optimum for me? What is it that my parents did do that was good? What did they do? What did I gain? What positive qualities did I get from them and how they treated me? And then also, what are the negative things that happened? And then try and figure out, okay, so if these bad things happened, like, you know, if I was treated as if I wasn't good enough, like, what would that childhood have been like if I was encouraged and supported and connected with on a regular basis? And, you know, how would that have played out? So I think it's a good idea to ask ourselves, how would I want to have been parented? And then do that. Literally do that in your life. So if you were maybe not try to like start to live in a way where you're supporting and encouraging yourself, but also start to support and encourage the other people in your life, because the law of attraction is alive and well. Like as soon as you start to do to other people or do with other people the things that you're looking for, it has to come back to you. It's the law. It has to. It's a no-brainer. So yeah, so there's really obvious things like if we value ourselves, we exercise, we eat the right foods for our body, we commit to healing ourselves, we allow ourselves rest, we allow ourselves play, we allow ourselves the fun, the joy, the boundaries, the preferences. I think that's one of the most important things. So we learn to, look at people around us, like why are these people around us? Why have we chosen these people to be in our life? What do we value about them? What is the uniqueness of them that we're valuing? And then tell them that you value it. Because if you acknowledge value in others, your value will have to be acknowledged. It has to come back to you. Again, it's the law. So if we commit to others like we want to be committed to, then we start to feel our own sense of value. And others like how we're valuing them. So committing to our spiritual journeys as well is one of the most powerful things that a human can do, I think, especially at this time in history. I think like the top of the list for building self-value is to learn to value our inner voice. So our intuition, our gut instinct. So whatever way you see that. So because sort of when I started this off tonight and I was talking about how we all systematically tuned out of ourselves, and we were so empathic and so traumatized that we didn't pay attention to ourselves at all, literally for the first like 10 years of our life. We were not certainly not taught about our inner voice. I think if we were, that's a very rare occurrence. So we're learning now about intuition. You know, many of us are experiencing synchronicity and receiving messages. So if we can learn to value our inner voice and then act on that, that's when the magic's going to happen. That's when you're going to be connecting to the true you. So that takes a bit of practice. But listening to our own guidance is the only guidance. It's the only guidance. I mean, obviously, I'm guiding you now, like listening to other people's guidance, fantastic, but it's never as good as your own guidance, never. So listening to our own guidance, our own intuition, our own gut instincts, and then do the thing that it's advising you to do. Because the closer and closer you get to your true self, the higher your self-esteem, the higher your sense of self-worth, the higher your sense of self-love for sure. So I don't think this is an easy topic at all, because there is no quick fix with value and worth. None. And it's so unbelievable that we're all still alive. I mean, we can consciously work on the negative emotions that we feel coming up about the fact that we were not valued as children. But you know, like our parents did the best they could, and they probably grew up in more extreme circumstances than us. So, you know, I'm not playing the blame shame game here, because then I would be just as bad as what my parents did to me. Like I see them, and I see everyone's parents as just being kind of robotic or traumatized and stuck, it's kind of sleepwalking. So it's not that our parents didn't love us, they think they did. And they thought they were doing the best that they could, like even when they're saying things like you want to be ashamed of yourself, you want to be the lowest frequency in the universe. They thought that would work well for us. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. So I think we can consciously work on the negative emotion that we feel as a result of not being valued, and as a result of not being taught how to value ourselves as children. And we can explore who we are. And we can ask ourselves, you know, who was that little me that was shut down because it wasn't safe enough to exist as us? So I have a memory of, like, my mum would always say, like, she would say that on a loop. So obviously that eroded away at my self-esteem. And I asked myself recently, okay, so she said it so many times to me that I shut down, like, all my speaking and everything. And I started to think, like, what was it to say that she was shutting down? And I couldn't remember. And I still can't. And I don't really have, I must have suppressed it really deeply, like what I wanted to express. But yeah, I'm on that journey now, trying to connect with the inner child version of me that had loads of things to say that probably were interesting, that she felt threatened by. You know, it's so interesting if you think of those little yous that were shut down and why you were shut down. Who was that? Because I think that our inner children, our inner child, I think it's the same version of us as our higher self. And I think our inner children, our inner child, and our higher self is the same version of us as our future self as well. Like when we were born, we were whole. That's our future self after we're healed, when we've got back to where we started. And our higher self is the whole version of us that is trying to guide us out of this shit show. So yeah, I think that through healing, we're just trying to get back to the self that we were originally before we got all this horrible stuff stuck to us. So I think our inner child is our higher self. And what if that is our future self as well? That's like quite mind-boggling. So what if our past self is really our future potential self? I mean, I love that. And I love it because it reinforces that everything we need to know is actually inside of us, which I truly believe. And, you know, that's why I focus so much on self-healing, because I think it's great to have therapy with other people, because other people are perfect reflections to help us connect with ourselves. That when you work on yourself and you start to trust yourself, it's only you that can do that deep dive. No one else can do that for you. So I love the thought that our past self is really our future self, because it does reinforce that we've got everything we need already. It's a shame it doesn't feel like it though. So yeah, I think I'm gonna see if anybody else wants to add. So does anybody who's here live want to say anything at all about that?
But what you've literally just the start of life and the end of life.
Yeah.
That inner you never changes. It's always the same.
Yeah.
From the way I look at it. And it's in fact, I was talking about this the other day, and I sort of likened it to a broom handle. So if you look at the end of a broom handle, and all you see is the end of the broom handle. You flip it around and look at the bottom, all you see is the end of the broom handle. It's the same. And it's the same all the way through. However, your life experiences are like post-it notes that have been stuck to it along the way.
Yeah.
That's my bit.
Yeah. No, I like it. Yeah, I totally get it. And I think it just like it's really helpful to zoom out sometimes and just see the journey, you know, because like we're all kind of like, oh, when am I going to be healed? And I need to get to this destination and this utopia that, you know, I've promised myself, but actually it's here now. Like we're here now. But yeah, it's sometimes hard to appreciate that. Sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's, when you look at the broom handle sort of metaphor from the side, you can see all the little steps, all the post-it notes, all the little things that have happened to you from childhood right through teenage years, adulthood, middle age, and so on, depending on how far down that hole you are. And if you're at the far end of it, all those life experiences, all those post-it notes that, you know, I got married, I had a row, you know, I crashed my car, my dad shouted at me when I was 8. All these little post-it notes, they all have an effect on you.
Yeah.
And you've just got to realise that we are all more than just blades of grass bending in the wind. You know, there are more to us on the inside. That's where everything matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
The post-it notes you can rip off. You can burn the post-it notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. I mean, I think the tendency of humans is to get rid of the post-it notes. So by denying them or suppressing them or rejecting them or disowning them or pretending that none of that's there. But like the trick to healing is to, you don't have to keep them there so that they're affecting your life in a negative way. Like you just have to feel them, feel and have compassion for yourself that that happened and was a reality and that it probably did affect you. And then kind of let it go, but like integrate it. So bring it in and kind of have it as a part of you, but as a lesson learned and like a thing that's processed rather than a sticking point that you can't get past. You know, we have to sit with the post-it notes until that we're okay with them.
Post-it note that's stuck on that you can deal with, rather than something that's been gouged into a piece of wood that is your inner you.
Yeah.
Which is they're all just post-it notes, experiences in life. And, yeah, we're here to experience life in all its various different things, and we each share similar post-it notes, and some of them are completely different.
Yeah, it's funny because like I've said this quite a few times this week, but and I can't remember the name of it, but there's like a Japanese art form where, you know, like if somebody smashes a pot, like a broken pot, and then instead of like sweeping it up and putting all the pieces in the bin and like, oh, we'll have to get a new pot, they'll fix it with gold. So they'll just get every tiny little piece and like put it all together, and they'll create this new pot that has this kind of gold thread running through it. And then it looks like even more beautiful with the breakages and kind of the knocks and the scrapes of life. Like they create this whole new piece out of the brokenness. And I love that analogy. Like there's a name for it. And it's used quite frequently as like a sort of metaphorical way of explaining how to integrate, you know, how to integrate life instead of push aspects of life away that maybe were difficult, because it shapes you and it brings you the wisdom to be, you know, better or deeper or to learn more or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think
I was having a conversation earlier today, and I likened life to someone visiting a Blackpool pleasure beach or an amusement park, where there's various different aspects available to you, from the thrill-seeking rides to hook a duck to, you know, the Wurlitzers, boxers, and only when you're ready and capable of being able to go on the bigger rides that you do. If you jump on a big ride straight away, because they always show you the little height thing, don't they? Or if you're not over this line, you're not allowed on, and there's reasons for that. So in the sort of pleasure beach of life, we start off on, when I used to go to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the first thing I always used to go on was the Noah's Ark thing. And if anyone's ever been to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, they will know what I'm talking about. It was the first thing that you saw when you walked through the main gates was Noah's Ark.
Is that the ship thing that goes upside down?
Has it got what?
Is it like getting on a boat, but then it swings like a pendulum and then it goes upside down?
Oh no, that's the pirate ship to the left. It's probably not there now. They've probably demolished it and replaced it with something else. But it was literally a walk-on sort of thing, and it had odd staircases, it had tilted platforms, it had various different things that you went through a dark sort of corridor, and then you'd walk out and come back down. But then once you'd been on that, then down the other side, down one road, you had all the arcades, you had the House of Mirrors, you had all the smaller rides, and you would experience everything. And then as you got further and further down the Pleasure Beach sort of way, there was the more interesting adult type rides, like the Tunnel of Love and the water rafting ride, and then you had the Big Dipper. Now, if I was 6 years old and I went on the Big Dipper, it would have absolutely terrified me, and I would have like, I'm never going to go on that. However, when you're 12, all you want to do is go on the Big Dipper.
Yeah.
Because you're ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So life's like that. Life's like going to an amusement park like that. And you've got to ride the rides when you're ready for them rides. Don't do them. Don't be eager to do them too soon.
Yeah. 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 It's such an interesting journey, life, because the more that I talk to people who are unraveling their lives, the more it seems really clear that we hit a certain age or whatever, or a certain kind of level of consciousness or whatever that is, and then all we're interested in doing really is making sense of where we've been. And it's kind of like I think a lot of people get to the point where they can't move on, or something will happen in their life where nothing makes sense anymore and they have to stop. It's like a crisis will happen, or something will unravel, and then it's like, how did I get here? Like, how did I get into this sticky mess? How did this situation unfold? And then it's kind of like people are forced into trying to figure out what the hell happened, and it's almost like we're blind up to a point, or we've got blinkers on or something. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has got anything they want to add. If you want to unmute your mics and jump in and have a quick, even if it's just a hello, please feel free. We have got one or two people listening. No one's taken the bait.
No.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Jump on and say hello.
Bye. Bye, Jackie.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
I can't hear you now.
Oh.
So, hang on. Cool.
Well, thank you for coming, Jackie.
You're welcome. I actually find your show very interesting, and as you say, triggering sometimes.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry. No, it gives us loads to think about and consider.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's quite difficult being me sometimes, because I know that I trigger people, and I've lost a lot of people in my life because of the truth thing that I've got going on. And I've learned loads of you know, difficult lessons where, you know, not everybody wants to hear it. And you have to, you know, pick your moments. And yeah, I've made loads of mistakes with it. But yeah, I know a lot about trauma and life as a result of a lot of difficult things happening to me. So the way that I can integrate that is by helping other people. So I love it. And I love that you're benefiting. I love that you're getting triggered, Jackie.
Well, actually, I found quite a lot in common when you're talking. It's like a similar journey.
Yeah.
And it's your show's really cool.
Oh, thanks, Jackie. You're very welcome. I've noticed your name quite a few times and wondered about you, actually. So thank you for coming on. But yeah, you don't ever feel like you have to say anything, because like I always remember being at school and feeling like really scared that the teacher was going to ask me. Do you know what I mean? So I'm quite keen to like not force anybody.
Yeah, I get you when it comes to public speaking. I'd be yeah. I go off mine now. Great talking to you.
Oh, thanks, Jackie. Anybody else?
I'll jump in. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi, Joyce.
I'm sorry, I just got a bit sidetracked. I'm upstairs. I got some inspiration.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting through a couple of boxes of knitting yarns and things, and yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a self-worth thing.
Yeah.
One of my things is referring to what you were saying earlier about self-worth and self-value, is I deprive myself of things that I enjoy doing, you know, creative things.
Yeah.
Because I'm always doing things that I think I have to do. And I realised that by giving myself the time and the time to do the things that I enjoy and give me pleasure, then that sort of re-energizes me, and I'm more able to do other stuff, you know, other mundane stuff.
Yeah.
So, I just got a bit of inspiration when I was listening to you talk. And found myself bringing my phone upstairs and rooting through some boxes of knitting stuff. I picked up some tapestry, actually, some woven tapestry, and just trying to find bits of yarn for that. And in the process of that, discovered things that I'd forgotten I had. A whole string of unfinished projects.
Yeah, I know that feeling of having unfinished projects. But I love that, because things like life has got so serious, hasn't it? Like I really notice that in myself sometimes as well. Like we're all so serious, and like it would be self-loving and build up our sense of self-value if we just let ourselves have the things that we love. Yeah, do the crafts and the dancing and the, you know, all of that.
Yeah, well, whatever it is that gives us pleasure.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're having a rummage there, Joyce. That's brilliant that you're inspired. Anybody else? I think we'll wrap it up, Andy, because it's exactly 7 o'clock.
Indeed, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who's listened and everyone who's jumped on. And if you've got some final words before you end the recording, and don't forget, we can stick around after the show if people want to have an after show, not on the record. Then obviously we can do that.
An after show party.
Yes. A few of them I've had.
Yeah.
I've been to.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking of like doing next week, maybe teaching people to do like a bit of self-healing, maybe. Like there's a a couple of processes, like without going kind of like really deep, I can sort of give people instructions on how to tune into the body and how to process a difficult emotion, or even how to, because obviously I don't want people to sort of be delving into their traumas kind of like, well, we're on the radio necessarily, but kind of giving people instructions on how to get a root memory from their body, because there's a lot of things that are quite easy to do and very powerful that people don't realize is possible. And I know that quite a few people listening are finding it useful and are sort of making connections and understanding themselves more. But yeah, there's a couple of techniques that I might teach next week, but I'll have a think about that. So I'm not quite sure. I might change my mind as well and do something completely different to that. But yeah, just a thought. But if anybody would like me to do that, just send me a message. If anybody wants anything else, yeah, send me a message, because I'd rather talk about things that people want to hear than just ramble on. But yeah, that's brilliant. So thank you everybody for coming, especially the people that are here live. And thank you for listening on the replay as well. And I'm really enjoying having lots of interesting things to say and people listening. So it's awesome. It's like healing for me. I love it. So thanks everybody. And I'll see you. Sorry, I won't see you next week, but I'll speak to you next week. Bye everyone. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, for some reason I'm still uncertain about the buttons, but yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Not the tech wizard.
Don't worry, if you cock it up, fine, you cock it up, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're not going to break the earth.
No, good.
You know, when you said there, I'll see you next week, it often reminds me when in a situation like this, where obviously you're not going to actually physically see them.
Yeah.
It always reminds me of the Indian Sanskrit namaste.
Yeah.
Which is, I see the light in you that's in me.
Yeah,
type of
yeah.
thing. So even though we visually can't see each other,
Yeah.
we see each other's light. We see each
Yeah.
other within each of us.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Yeah, it's like, yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how you can also get an image of a person, like how they look, but without really knowing if that's how they look. But it's like I think we must have like an energetic signature or something. That people have a feeling, don't they? I guess. But yeah, I think people remember how you made them feel more than any other sense. Or maybe that's just me because I'm quite sentient. I don't know. But yeah, it's
Well, again, that's part and parcel of the whole holistic radio thing. Keeping just audio only, so that whoever's speaking, whatever presenter is doing, their show, they use their voice, and people will resonate with that voice, and it will conjure up imaginings in their mind as they're listening to the presenter talk.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's brilliant that. Yeah.
Without visual distraction.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. Yeah. Because it sort of heightens your senses in a way, doesn't it? I think with everything being on video now and everything's, social media, everything's kind of quite superficial in a way. But like just having audio, like it is quite sort of, it's old fashioned, but it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like it makes me think about when I was a kid, like one of the things that I enjoyed doing the most was listening to the radio. And I still listen to the radio a lot now. But I don't know if people really do that much. I think I wouldn't want it to go out of fashion. But yeah, I think it is. It's an interesting thing.
It's the future.
Yeah, yeah.
As Queen so eloquently did with their Radio Gaga track, and
yeah,
you know, it is. They talk about vision and everything, and when it's all there, it's all gone. You'll be left with radio.
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. I haven't thought of that before, but
because I ran out and I got this quote when you said about feeling. So there's a quote by Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Oh, thanks for that.
Yeah, no, it's just when you said it, I ran out, got it off the wall, and I brought it in.
Ah, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, because like everybody has their superpowers, don't they? Like some people are clairvoyant, some people are clairaudient. Like I'm not clairvoyant or clairaudient, although I can have a bit of both actually. But it's not my main thing. Like my main thing is that I'm definitely clairsentient. Like I can feel things that other people are feeling. You know, if I sat on the bus, I would feel things that people were feeling next to me. It's like really strange. But I think it's a thing that I've always felt as well. But yeah, I always remember how people make me feel as well. So I think it's an equal and opposite thing. I think if you're a feeler, then you cause other people to feel as well, for sure. But also like
we're electromagnetic beings. So from that particular perspective, we're all energy, therefore we would, you know, get that attractive, unattractive thing, and I think that's where it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, interesting.
I'm going to mute myself again. I'm actually doing a little bit of work while I'm talking to you guys.
Oh, thanks, Jackie. No, that was a lovely quote. Right. Would anybody else like to say anything or have a chat or I think I might stop and go and have a cup of tea. I love my cups of tea.
What kind of tea do you drink?
Well, I drink quite a lot of normal tea, which I don't think is very good for me. I keep getting messages from the universe about black tea because I think it's supposed to be quite acidic compared to other kinds of tea. And I'm trying to go a bit more sort of alkaline, if you see what I mean. So I drink green tea and I drink red bush tea, and mint tea and things like that. But you can't beat a proper cup of tea, like a proper brew for some reason for me. And I've
always found proper tea, like Thai food tea, or Tetley tea. It always leaves my mouth dry afterwards and wanting more to drink. So I've never been a big tea drinker. However, like you, red bush tea, green teas. I've even tried the Japanese matcha.
Oh yeah, the green one.
But do it in hot milk. Make it with hot milk. It's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, it's one of those sort of Marmite things. You love it or you hate it. And I went through a phase of drinking that, but I think it's really good for you. It's quite bitter if you don't sweeten it or whatever. But I've noticed people are combining it with like, is it lion's mane mushrooms or something? There's all sorts of like different mushrooms that people are having. But yeah, it's
my mushroom phase years ago.
Yeah.
The chai teas, the chai lattes.
Oh yeah.
made with milk.
Yeah, yeah, I like those too, with a bit of sort of cinnamon. Yeah.
I noticed Carly unmuted herself a few seconds ago. I was just wondering whether Carly's got a favourite tea she'd like to share.
I like real tea, as in, I don't know, Indian tea with lots of milk and sugar.
Yeah.
I go through controlling phases where I need to gain control of myself, and I quit the sugar and move to honey. And then I, at the moment, I'm in a, I think it was Emily Jane talking about.
I don't know whether it's me or not, but yeah, I think you're cutting in and out there, Carly.
And Andy's dad used to have this Alaska remnants of the after the sugar process has gone on. So apologies if I am. I don't know what I could do.
I don't know if it's me. Is Carly cutting in and out for you as well, Jen?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You might have too many doors around you. That's what it might be. Open a door.
Yes.
Let the Wi-Fi signal in.
Let me try. What does it? I'm trying to block it out, Andy. It's getting me a bit messy lately.
Yeah, my dad